We are up to, we are at the very bottom of Yudam Beis. We're going through again each of the, we're talking about how different Tanaim and Amoraim, when they would start giving a shir, so they would start to do some sort of tie-in to the story of Purim, and the reason why they did that is because, like we said a few blot ago, there was a question whether or not the whole Megillah Sesa was going to be included in Ksuvim, so this was like they wanted to make some connection to be able to say that there was going to be the connection that Esther does belong in Ksuvim. Okay, so we are starting with the Gemara Rabba Bar Ofram, which is where is it? Second last night. Thank you very much. Okay, so Rabba Bar Ofram pasuk le piskol hay parshas mihacha. Rabba Bar Ofram, when he would start to give his shir, so he would start it from here. He would say, it says in the pasuk v'samti kisi be'elam v'avadati misham melech v'sarim, that I'm going to put my throne in Elam and I'm going to destroy the king and his princes. Who is that? So Melech, that's referring to Vashti. That's referring to Vashti. And V'sarim is referring to the princes. Haman v'Aseres Banav. That's referring to Haman and his sons, who are considered to be princes. Rav Dimi bar Yitzchak pasuk le piskol lahai parshas mihachi would start it from here, turning now to Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. It says in the pasuk, Ki avadim anachnu u'ba'avodoseinu lo azavnu Elokeinu v'yat leinu chesed l'fnei malchei paras, that we were slaves, but Hashem did not abandon us. So what? And that he would do good towards when we were in Paras. You with us, Adam? You good?
We're good, huh?
Yeah, Masechtas Megillah. Yeah. Okay. So you'd say, when's that referring to? That Hashem was good to, that He turned to us and He was good to us? That's Bizman Haman. That was in the time of Haman. Rav Chanina bar Papa pasuk le piskol lahai parshas mihachi. He started from here. It says in the pasuk, Yirkavta enosh roshenu banu ve'eshav mayim, that you entered, that you put you put a man over us, and we went into fire and water. So Be'esh, we made Nebuchadnezzar Russia. That's talking about Nebuchadnezzar, that Nebuchadnezzar threw Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah into the Kivshon Eish. He threw them into the fire. So that's what that's referring to. But Umayim be made Paro, that's referring to the days of Paro. That Paro had decreed that all of the either that all the Jewish males that were born should be thrown into the Nile River. So that's referring to the water. But when Hashem took us out, He brought us out. That's being made Haman. That's talking about the days of Haman, that Hashem saved us from Haman. Rabbi Yochanan pasuk le piskol lahai parshas mihachi started from a different place. Zachar chaz v'manaseh l'beis Yisrael ro kalas v'eretz Yeshuas Eloheinu. That everyone saw the Yeshuas, the salvation from Hashem. That a masai ro kalas v'eretz Yeshuas Eloheinu. When did they see the salvation from Hashem? B'mei Mordechai Esther. That was in the days of Mordechai and Esther. That they saw that the letters went out saying that they should not do anything, and then it went out telling everyone what happened in Shushan and how the Jews were victorious. So that was sent out to all over the world and informed everybody.
Right.
Yes.
These things are starting, at least in the English translation, they're giving a lecture. What is the?
They used to give shiurim. So when they would start a shir, so before they would start giving their class, whatever it was, Daf Yomi, Amud Yomi, whatever classes they would give back then, so they would do it. They didn't just delve straight into whatever the subject matter was. They would always do something beforehand to get it going. Okay, next Gemara is Rish Lakish pasuk le piskol lahai parshas mihacha. It says Ari Noham v'dov shokek Moshel Rasha alam dal. That it says that the lion roared and a bear was growling, and there was we had a ruler that was a Russia that was over a poor nation. So what is that referring to? Ari Noham Zen Nebuchadnezzar Russia. That's referring to Nebuchadnezzar. D'chsiv bei Allah Ari meisuvka, that the lion came up from the bushes. Dov shokek. What does it mean that the bear was growling? Zeh Achashverosh. That's referring to Achashverosh. D'chsiv bei va'aru cheva achri tanina dami ledov. That he was another animal that came who was like a bear. V'tani Rabbi Yosef. How is he like a bear? Elu parsaim she'ochlim v'shosim kedov. This is like the Persians, who when they eat and they drink like a bear. Umisrubal and basur kedov, and they get very covered with a lot of flesh, just like a bear does. Umegad and ser kedov, and they're very hairy like a bear is. Ve'en la'menucha kedov, and they're also like they're never at rest. They said that even if you try to tie down a bear, it's still always moving around, trying to move. That they're very restless. So that was referring to Achashverosh. And Moshel Rasha, what is that referring to? Zeh Haman, that's referring to Haman. Alam Dal, and who is the poor nation? Eli Yisrael, Shem Dalim and Mitzvos. That at that time, when the story of Purim took place, the Bnei Yisrael were poor in mitzvos. And we're going to show how the Gemara is going to show a little bit later how they did that. Rabbi Lazar pasuk like piskal ha parshas mihacha. He started when he would give his shir. He would start off from a different pasuk. About saltaim yimach hamikara uveshvilos yadayim yidof habayis. It says that through that the laziness, the ceiling would fall down, and then the house would be leaking. So what does that mean? That because of the laziness that the Jews had, that they were not learning any Torah, so then the enemy of Hashem, which it doesn't want to say that it's referring to the Bnei, it's a euphemism. Instead of saying, the Gemara does that very often, instead of speaking disparagingly about the Jews, it would say the enemies of the Jews, but it's really referring to Bnei Israel. But we were that we were poor, that meaning that we didn't have the proper mitzvos. And over here it literally means that they were poor from financially. Shenemar that it's referring to, the Torah is referring to when someone would evaluate how much, if he says, I'm going to give the value of a person that I promised to pledge to the Beis HaMikdash, so you would evaluate different people have, depending on their age, so they have different values. So it says, if he was poor, and that's referring to Hashem, that Hashem had his upper chambers, meaning that he has the Rakia and the Shemayim, is referring to the water, it's referring to Hashem. He started it from here. It says, Shir Malos, Lule Hashem, Sha'asalanu Yomar Yisrael, Lule Hashem Sha'ilanu B'Makum Aleinu Adam, that when a person rose up against us, so the Gemara learned, so he would say, Adam below Melch. So it's referring to a man that did it. Again, the whole story of Purim, it was not Achashverosh against, it wasn't the king that was coming out against the Bnei Israel, it was Haman, it was just a man that was doing it. So at that time, Hashem saved us from the man that was trying to destroy Klal Yisrael. Rabba Pasuk Piskal HaPrashas Mehachi would start from here. It says, Birvos Tzadikim Yismacham, Mishol Rasha Yenacham. That it says that when the Tzadikim are very high, so then the people are happy, and when the Rishonim are very high, then the people are very troubled. What's that referring to? Birvos Tzadikim Yismacham. That when the righteous, when the Tzadikim are very high, the people are happy. Zem Mordechai Vester. That's referring to when Mordechai and Esther were in charge, because it says in the Megillah, here Shushan Tzahalav Samecha, that Shushan was filled with joy. And when it says that when the Rishonim are over the people, then they're sighing, that the city of Shushan was very it was upset. So again, you see that when good things were happening, that was when Mordechai and Esther were in charge. When bad things were happening, that's when Haman was, and that's when the people were troubled. Rav Masna Ramehacha Kimi Gai Gadol Ashalol Akim Krovim Elav. That who is the nation that Hashem so close to? Because Haman, the way that Haman got Achashverosh to agree to wipe out the Jews was, he says there's the Bnei Yisrael and they're not close to Hashem, they've already moved away from Him, and they're scattered, they're not together, but the pasuk says Ashelokim Krovim Alav, that Hashem is still close with us. He was wrong that even when it looked like Hashem was not close to us, but Hashem still was, and that's where Haman was wrong when he thought that they had moved away from Hashem. Rav Ashi Amar Mahacha, it says, Anis Elokim, that Hashem has done miracles for us, which is referring to, there was a Mida Keneged Mida, that there were two things that Rashi brings down. One is because when we just had in this past week's parsha that the Mitzrayim wanted to kill the Jews through water, right? They wanted to drown the baby, all the male children, they wanted to throw them into water. So therefore, they ended up drowning in the Yam Suf. And the Mida Keneged Mida for this days of Purim is that Haman wanted to kill out the Jews, and instead it was just the opposite, that on V'nahapachu, that on Purim, that's when the Jews were able to kill out Haman and all the people that wanted to kill us. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to start going through the Megillah itself, and it's going to break down each word in the Megillah. So it says Vahivi Me'ach Hashverosh. So Amarav Vahivi, as we said, that Vahi, that it means it's a lashon of woe that was troubling, as we said on the other blot. Hadad Dichsiv Vismarkartem Sham Laivechal Avadim Lishvachos. That it says that Yirmiyah, when he was talking about the Tochacha, he says that you're going to want to sell yourselves as avadim, and they're not going to buy you. And that was referring to that Esther, when she was talking to Achashverosh, she says, and if it would be that they just want to sell us as slaves, we'd be okay with that. But no one wanted to even buy them as slaves, because everyone was saying, why would I pay money to buy a Jew as a slave? We're killing you. You know, when Purim comes, we're going to kill you. So they're not going to pay a lot of money for them. So that was the problem that we could. That it was adult. Not only couldn't we sell ourselves as slaves, but the reason why we couldn't was because we were going to get wiped out. Ushmuel Amar Loma asim lo altim lachalosim. What does it mean that what does that mean? Loma asim bin mei Yevanim. It means that Hashem said that He wasn't disgusted by them. Is referring to them in the days of the Yevanim. V'lo ga'altim bin mei Nebuchadnezzar, and I did not reject them. That's talking about the days of Nebuchadnezzar. L'chalosim, to destroy them. B'mei Haman, that's referring to Haman. L'hafer brisi itam b'mei Parsaim, that's referring to the days of the Parsaim. Kini Hashem Elokim b'mei Gog and Magog, and that's referring to the days of Gog and Magog. So each time when it looked like things were going bad for us, but Hashem says that I didn't abandon you and I still stayed with you. But Masni Satana, there was a different way to learn the pasuk. Loma Astim, that's referring to maybe Make Hazdim. She'amarati lahem Daniel, Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, that he had Daniel, Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah that were there to help lead them during the troubled times that they had at that time. V'lo ga'altim, that's referring to Bimei Yevanim. She'amarati lahem Shimon HaTzadik, V'chashmono Yevanu, V'matasyo Kohen Gadol, that Hashem appointed leaders. They were able to help us when the Greeks were trying to destroy us. L'chalosam Bimei Haman. She'amarati lahem Mordechai Vesha, that we had Mordechai and Esther that were able to lead us during those days. L'hafer brisi itam b'mei Parsaim, that's referring to the days of Parsaim. Shemarati lahem shel beis Rebbe v'chachmei doros, that Rebbe and all the Talmidei Chacham of that generation were there to help lead us. Ki ani Hashem Elokeichem la'asid lo, that's referring to the future. She'en kol umma v'lashin yichola l'shlol behem, that no nation is going to be able to stand before us. That's referring to the future when Mashiach comes. Reb Levi Amar Mahacha v'lim lo sarishu es yoshvei aretz, it's referring to that if you that Hashem said that if you're not going to wipe out the people, well, we're actually going to do both of them together. That it's referring to when Hashem says, when the Bnei Yisrael were going into Eretz Yisrael, so Hashem says you should wipe them out and you should destroy them. But Shaul HaMelech, when he was doing that, when he was doing the conquering, it's a famous story that he left Amalek alive. He didn't wipe out Amalek, and from there Haman ended up coming. So if we would have listened at the time when Hashem said he should wipe them out and destroy them, then we could have been saved without having any of the tsar that was going to be coming about from Amalek. So the Gemara continues now. Achashverosh. What does the name Achashverosh mean? Amar Rav, Achiv Shalrosh, that he was the brother of the head. Who's the head? Uvengilo Shalrosh, and he was the same mazel. He had the same traits as the head. So who's that referring to? Achiv Shal Rosh, Achiv Shal Nebuchadnezzar, Harash Shenikra Rosh, that he was a brother of Nebuchadnezzar, who was called the head, as it says in the pasuk, Shnemar Antu Reisha De Dahava, that you're the head of the gold, because since Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, which had the gold in it, so he was called the head of the gold. And Ben Gilo Shal Rosh, how is he the same traits as Nebuchadnezzar? Hu Harag, Hu Bikesh Laharag, that Nebuchadnezzar killed the Jews, and Achashverosh wanted to kill the Jews. Everyone thinks that Achashverosh was like a, that Haman was the main evil person here, and Achashverosh was this do-gooder. He was not. Achashverosh was also a Rasha. It's just that the story was focused on Haman, who convinced Achashverosh, because Achashverosh does not want to kill out, a king doesn't want to kill out his subjects, because he loses money then. He wants his subjects there, they're able to work, they're able to pay taxes. So Achashverosh was a Rasha in that he hated the Jews, but he was a king in that he wanted the Jews to stay alive so that he'd be able to still be able to get money from them and get labor from them. So that's the only reason why we think of Achashverosh almost as being like a little bit better, but he was not a good person. So who bikeshar? So again, Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, and Achashverosh wanted to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, which again the Gemara will discuss. Shenemar v'malchus Achashverosh v'tchilos malchuso kasvus sitna al yoshvei Yehuda v'Yishalayim. That it was during the time of Achashverosh that they were trying to start rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash again, and Achashverosh was explaining why he stopped the workers from doing the construction on the Beis Hamikdash. Shmuel Amar Shehuksharu Paneim Shal Yisrael B'Yamav Kishulei Kedera, that the face of the Jews became dark like at the bottom of a blackened pot. That when a pot burns, it becomes very black on the bottom. That's what the Jews were like. That they were so depressed. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kol Shezachra Amar Ach L'Rosho, that whoever would mention Achashverosh would go Ach, like they would Achashverosh. There was again a combination of his name. Rav Chanina Amar Shakol Nasu Russian B'Yamav, that everyone became poor during his days. Shenemar V'Yasam Hamelech Achashverosh Mas, that Hashem, that Achashverosh placed a tax on everybody. So by taxing them, that's how he was taking their money away from them. So the Gemara says, "Who Achashverosh? What does it mean? Who Berisham Mitchilas about Sofa? That Achashverosh was a Rasha from the beginning to the very end. Again, even though we think that he gave over to Mordechai and Esther and he made them the rulers, but he was a Rasha. He really did not have any good intentions. Who Esav, and similarly we see that when it says who Esav, Who berisham et chilas about sofa that Esav was a rush in the beginning, and Esav was a rush at the end when he tried to stop Yaakov from going into Ma'aras HaMachpelah, and he made a big stink at that time, so he was a rush at that time also. Who dasam ba'aviram. Hein berisham b'tchilam b'atsof, and that they were Rishayim at the very beginning when it says that that Moshe saw Rashal Masakas Riyacha. It was referring to Das and Aviram that were fighting with each other, and they were the ones that said, "Oh, are you going to kill us like you killed that Mitzri?" So they got the word out that Moshe was the one that did that. So they were Rishayim then, and they were Rishayim all the way through the end when they died, when the story of Korach took place. Hu Melech Achaz. Who berisham et chilas about sofa. Achaz also was a rush from the very beginning until the end when he died in battle. But conversely, it says Avram, that Avram Avinu was who b'tzidkom et chilas about sofa, that once he discovered once he discovered Hashem, which they say that happened when he was 3 years old. So Avram stayed at tzaddik from the beginning of his life to the end of his life. Who Aaron and Moshe, when it says Moshe, Aaron and Moshe, Hein b'tzidkom et chilas about sofa, and that they stayed tzaddikim through their whole life. That they see the only reason why Moshe and Aaron died was because of the chet of the when they hit the rock instead of talking to it. So other than that, they were kulam tzaddikim. The David who akatan, and then the last thing is we say that David was the smallest. What does that mean? Hu bekatnuso metchilaso ad sofa, that he stayed humble from the beginning when he was not yet a king to the very end when he was a king. Kashem shebekatnuso hiktin atzmo etzel mi shegadim imenu b'Torah, that just like before he was king, that he humbled himself before Mephibosheth, who was his Rebbe. So too, after he was king, also it says that when he started wanting to dig for the Beis Hamikdash, so it says that the waters of the depth started coming up and was threatening to flood the entire world. So David HaMelech wanted to write on I think the Medrash says that he wanted to. I'm not sure. He wanted to write on a kli cheres. He wanted to write the Shem Hashem, and he would throw that into the waters, and that would stop him from doing it. But he didn't know if you're able to do that or not. So he asked, does anyone know if you're able to do it or not? And Achitophel said, he made a kal v'chomer. He says, if by a sota, right, when a woman's accused of having an affair, so we say that they would erase the Shem Hashem, and that was just to cause peace between a husband and wife. So for sure, to save the entire world, for sure you're going to be able to write the Shem Hashem on this earthenware vessel, and you're going to, even though it's going to get destroyed when you throw it in, and he threw it in. So he called Achitophel, he called him his Rebbe, because he learned that one thing from him, but he called him his Rebbe. So he humbled himself in front of him. The Gemara says Hamolech. So I think we're up to the third word right now. We're a blot and a half into those, so we're up to the fourth word in the Megillah. Hamolech Amrav Shemalch Me'atzma, that he became king himself. What does that mean? Some say that it was a praise to him, and some say that it was supposed to be something that was negative. Some say that it was a praise, that even though Achashverosh was not of royal lineage, but there was no one else that was more worthy to be king than he was. So that's the praise, that Hamolech, that he became the king. But and some say that it was a detriment for him, that it was a negative, but that he really wasn't fit to be king. Except he paid a tremendous amount of money that he was able to pay in order to become the king, because I think the Medrash says that Nebuchadnezzar had hid away 3 vast amounts of treasures, and Achashverosh found one of them, and he used that money to buy himself the Malchus, to become king. So Gemara says, Mehodu v'akush, Ravu Shmuel. Chadamar mehodu b'sofa olam, v'kush b'sofa olam. One says that Hodu is on one end of the world and Kush is on the other end of the world, and it's showing you how vast his empire was, that he ruled from one end of the world to the other. V'chadamar hodu v'kush, gabi hadadi havikami, that they were right next to each other. And it's teaching you that Kishem Shemalach al hodu v'kush, that the same way that he was able to, that just like a king when he's in his capital, is able to rule much stronger on the capital because he's right there. So just like he was able to rule on Hodu and Kush, Kach Malach Mesofa Olam Vad Sofa, so too he was able to rule from one end of the world to the other, that he had an iron grip on all of his kingdom. Kiyotzi B'Dabra Atom, and similarly we find Kihu Roda B'Chol Ever Hanahar Mitzvahs V'Ad Azah. What does it mean? Rav Shmuel Chadam or Tifsach V'Sofa Olam V'Azah V'Sofa Olam, that they reach on other sides of the world. V'Chadam or Tifsach V'Azah V'Hadi Adadi, that they are both right next to each other. Kashem Shemalach Al Tifsach V'Alazah Kach Malach Al Kol Al Kulo. So too he ruled on the entire world. And I think the Rogatchover says, what is this argument that they're talking about? Who cares? Mehodu V'Kush, if they're on one end of the world or the other, or if they're right next to each other. He says, from here you see that Chazal knew that the world was round, because they said Mehodu V'Kush, that you go from Hodu all the way around to the other end, we'll go to Kush. So he says that's why the Gemara is bringing down this argument to show you that it was not like Kyrie Irving who says that the world is flat, but he says that it was round. They knew that back then. Let's just do one more piece. Sheva Rasmu Mea Medina. What does it mean that he had 127 provinces? Amr Rav Chizda, B'tchila Malach al Sheva, Ulbasof Malach al Esrim, Ulbasof Malach al Mea. That first he was ruler over. That he was a ruler over 7. Then he ruled over 20, and then he ruled over 100. So there's 127 total. So Gemara says, Ama'ata Ushnei Chaye Amram Sheva Shlosh Ma'ashana. So my Darash Tebe, what are you learning from the fact that he was 137 years old? There's no drasha that we have from that. Gemara says, Shani Hacha Dekraya Seiru, that it's different by Achashverosh when it says that he ruled over 127 because it was unnecessary. Michti Ksiv Mehodu Vakush. It says that he ruled from Hodav Kush. Sheva Vas Medina Lamali. So why do I need to know that it was 127 provinces? I know Hodav Kush, and then in the historic you look up and say how many provinces did he have? It was 127. So therefore Shema Manila Drasha. So you see that's for a drasha to teach you that it was 127. And let's do actually one more little piece. Ton Rabbanan. There were 3 kings that ruled over the entire world, like they had their kingdom was like underneath the dome, that they ruled over everything. Ve'eluhein Achav Achashverosh Nebuchadnezzar. Achav d'chsiv Chai Hashem Lokecha Im Yesh Goy Umamlacha Asher Lo Shalach Adon Isham Levakashcha. That I'm going to ask to look for you. Ve'ilo to have a malach alive. If he wasn't able to rule over the entire world, how can he make a shvuah saying that he's making a shvuah for everybody? It must be that he ruled over everybody. And Nebuchadnezzar that Hashem says that I'm going to give it I'm going to put it on the king of Bavel. I'm going to give him the ability to rule over everyone. And Achashverosh is that which we said. Okay, we'll stop here. Tomorrow night tomorrow when we do it, we're going to get into